having just one person that you can come home to who is like always got your back, that really you can surmount anything. So you can get to the friends that you want, you can build the community that you want based on that foundation of that primary relationship.
You're listening to the Science and Spirit of Happy podcast, where we discuss the rational, strategic, and psychological methods, but also the deep reasons and spiritual philosophy behind being happy down to the soul. Happiness isn't just hedonism. It's not even solely personal. Getting happy dramatically increases your effectiveness in every area, from business and finance to relationships. When we align with our own personal version of ideal, we end up not just happier, but healthier, more whole, more successful and richer, but even loving and loved. It's my opinion that getting happy for yourself is the absolute best way to serve the people in your life. I'm your host, Laura Bowers, master healer and academic researcher. And this is another episode diving into
the science and spirit of happy.
A logical path to soul.
Whew. Good day, y'all. Okay, we're back. We're talking falling in love and heartbreak today. I'm trying my best not to have my voice waver right now because I feel like this is it's just such a deep topic, and I wasn't gonna do an entire podcast on it. I was just gonna throw it in to my first episode, the first episode in this season, where we're talking about relationships. We're talking about creating, not just the romantic relationships, but also the friendships and the community that you want. But when it really comes down to it, when we're talking about relationships, romantic relationships kind of take the front seat, and everything else is not as, center frame. Even though, all of these things are really important. Friends are really important. Community is really important. But having been someone who has had varying experiences having support or none at all, having just one person that you can come home to who is like always got your back, that really you can surmount anything. So you can get to the friends that you want, you can build the community that you want based on that foundation of that primary relationship. So romantic partners are really probably why most people are tuning in, let's say. And that's totally understandable. I'm right there with you. Having a quivering, wavering voice, just thinking about the heartbreak that led me to love. So I wanted to talk about it. The most transformational thing I did in my journey, going from having complete non-relationships, having passive affection relationships, to being able to love, to really love and be loved on an everyday basis, all day long. No hiding, no secrets, nothing held back, and having come from a place where everything was always held back. Everything was always held back. So the most transformative thing I did was to love. And I just want to preface this that I was safe when I was falling in love. And I think I'm going to save that for another episode. I'm going to talk about the safety that I created in like my dating life in order to create freedom to get to this point. I don't know exactly what episode I'm going to talk about that in. I do know that I have it in my show notes for another episode, and I'm sorry I can't tell you exactly which one that is. So I created safety first. So I was safe in myself building this relationship with this person that I fell in love with. And once you fall in love, of course, you can only fall back on the safety that you created when you had the independence that you had while you were, just dating or getting to know each other, etc. So that part's really important because once you're in love, right? Once you're connected, then that's kind of the space where I'm not going to say the boundaries need to be, laid aside, but this is the space where you have to be willing to deal with whatever they do, right? You have to be willing to accept however they respond, right? So you have to create a kind of relationship before you even get to that stage where you can fall in love. And, I didn't fall in love with someone who is going to be exceptionally safe. However, I did have some level of safety. So I don't know if this will work for just any relationship anywhere. If you just fall in love with, a total D-bag, I think it probably would, because, well, what happened to me was I went from this place of being unable to even connect, right? Really having severe social anxiety, having severe anxiety, just having just complete discomfort with vulnerability, which is connection, right? Connection to myself, connection to other people, whatever. I was fine to connect to myself, but connecting that to other people was like a no-go. So creating the safety for me was like just a transformational thing in and of itself for dating, right? For dating, this put me on I was top of the dating game, creating the safety for myself. But once I fell in love, right? Once I got to that point where I could open to somebody, it of course didn't work out. So I went into the realm of total heartbreak, and I could talk about that. I mean, I could talk about that, but it doesn't really matter. I was absolutely shattered though. I was shattered. It's so weird that we're talking about this today because I usually use professional software to record. And right now my professional software froze. So I had to go back to GarageBand, which is I was a musician in a past life. I was a musician, and so is this gentleman, of course. And I used to use GarageBand, so did he actually, make music and whatnot. And so I had to go back and use this old software, and it's just being very, very nostalgic. So basically what happened was I was absolutely effing shattered. And what I had to do, I was talking in the last episode about vulnerability, right? Of becoming the person that you want to be with would want to be with, right? So I also talked in the last episode about how we can get angry, oh, that a-hole, he ghosted me or whatever. And I'm not saying that he's not an a-hole. I'm just saying that the anger isn't really what you feel. What you feel is rejected, abandoned, betrayed, whatever. And all of those feelings, they have a lot of you in them. The feeling of being abandoned, the feeling of being betrayed, the feeling of being rejected, the feeling of being heartbroken, that has so much of you in it. It has so much of what you want in it. It has so much of your previous pain, what's holding you back from what you want in it. There's so much there that if we just go into, this surface level vein, like ET, ego tool relating, like me against you, he's a D, she's a B, whatever, like they did wrong, yada, yada, yada. Like, yes, fine, justified, sure, whatever. But again, I opened this season talking about like how strategizing in relationships, it doesn't work. Like, we're in the realm of the heart. This isn't linear. So yes, he's logically a D. Yes, she's logically a B. Sure, this was not okay that they did, whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, okay? What matters is how you feel, genuinely. What matters is your experience in this. What mattered to me was that I loved this person. Like, I loved him. I wanted him to be happy. I didn't want him to be with me if that's not what he wanted. He wanted to go and travel and do things and obviously be free and do, other people and whatever. And that isn't what I wanted. It isn't what I wanted, but that's what he wanted. And like, I just wanted to feel the way that I felt. And I allowed myself to feel the way that I felt. I was in love with this man. I allowed myself to be in love with this man. I allowed myself to love him without expectations, which was the hardest thing to do. And I am not here to preach the virtues of unconditional love or whatever. Like, my love comes with conditions. But my love, when I feel my love, like the conditions of my love is that I feel it, right? The feeling of love. There's no conditions to my feeling of love. I still love my parents. I still love, many people who have done me wrong. Because like my feeling of love is my feeling of love. That's the way that I feel. And allowing myself to love him, to be in love, was so freeing. It was so empowering to just feel the way that I felt, regardless of the way that he felt, regardless of the way that he viewed my love or the way that he responded to my love. For me to just stay true to my own feelings, to allow myself to feel how I wanted to feel, or just to feel how I felt, whether that was so sad. And I was so sad. But I was able to get up and move through my life. Things dramatically changed in my life. They dramatically changed, and it seemed like they were changing for the worse. But I knew inside that they weren't. I knew inside that this was pure. I knew inside that I was walking a path where the universe, the earth, was going to meet me. The earth was going to rise to me every step that I took as I took it. And I didn't know where I was going, but I knew that I was going where my heart was taking me. And I let him do him. Because like in this state of love, this state of loving myself, of allowing this vulnerability for the first time in my life, allowing myself to feel the way that I felt and stay true to that for myself, loving him because that's how I felt, not because anything to do with him, because that's how I felt. It purified my connection between me and myself, my heart. And when I came out the other side of that, I knew who I was, and I knew that my love had created something inside me that was so freaking beautiful, that was so worthy, that was so worthwhile. That love for him, the strength of that love, it drove me to dig out, darknesses in me that I don't think anything else would have, because that's what devotion does. That's what dedication does. That's what love is. You have somebody who tells you that they love you, but they won't do the hard things for you. That's not love. Okay? Love will allow you to do the hardest things. They say love conquers all because it does. Love conquers all. And allowing myself to purify by dropping into total vulnerability and allowing myself to be and feel the way that I wanted to feel. Clarified my heart and my soul to meet a super nice guy. And not just a super nice guy, okay? A super nice guy that gave me tingles all over my body. A super nice guy that is and was hot AF. A super nice guy who is, my champion in a lot of ways. And a super nice guy who's smart. And a super nice guy who feels all the same ways about me. Now we have problems, but we're working through them. Me being able to support myself, I actually, I met this man. He had trauma I didn't know at the time. He had all of this trauma of people just totally not accepting him for him. And I rocked up with this energy where I was so willing to hold space, that I was so willing to allow him to be himself. He was actually quite friggin' weird with me at first. He'd write me messages and then not write back. He'd make plans with me and then ditch last minute. And, I just allowed him to be himself. And some of that stuff hurt, especially some of that stuff actually genuinely hurt. But, before we even got in a relationship, before we even got in a physical relationship, before we even kissed or anything, it got to the point where I could actually talk to him about how I was feeling because of the space that I created for myself, the ability to accept myself, to hold space for my own vulnerability. This allowed me to hold space for his vulnerability. This allowed me to hold space to accept him too. And he intuitively knew it. I never understood that people say you have to love yourself first before you can love anybody else. It's okay, well, that's a really, vague kind of analogy, but it isn't. I realized in those years that I was loving myself, loving someone else, loving myself and allowing myself to love someone who wasn't loving me, who wasn't there for me, who didn't want what I wanted, didn't want to be with me. I realized that the internal function of loving yourself, of actually taking the actions of shifting the energy, of creating the space, of allowing it to be, of diverting it, of being, choosing productive ways to support yourself. These are hard-earned skills that you can only learn inside because you don't know how it feels otherwise. You don't know what works, what doesn't, how it feels. These are skills that you learn by loving yourself, by actively loving yourself, doing the actions to love yourself. This is how you learn to love other people. And maybe somebody that was loved in their childhood fully, they don't get that, or maybe they do. Maybe they're yeah, of course. They would never see it any other way. But for somebody who wasn't, this was a huge light bulb going off in my head. Hey, loving yourself, actually actively loving yourself, learning how to love yourself is actually gaining the skills and putting the tools in the freaking tool belt and opening you up to the world where you can love somebody else. This is linear. This is absolutely this is training. Loving yourself is training to be able to love someone else. And I rocked up in this little town and I found this little town guy, who's supposedly from this great family, who is supposedly this really great guy. And, underneath it, he really is a great guy, but his family was totally faking it. And he had trauma. Trauma. He was traumatized and coping really, really well, but traumatized AF. And I rocked up being able to just hold space and be okay. And again, I was keeping myself safe in the ways that I keep myself safe when I'm dating. But I also had learned all of these things that I could actually love this man, and what that inspired in him. Not only did it inspire like him to take care of my heart. So, you know, when he would like hurt my feelings, because there was this thing, you know, we liked each other for a while without like doing anything about it. And people were talking about it and whatever. And there was like some drama, whatever. And people would say nasty things to me or whatever because he was a weirdo because of his trauma. And I would get hurt. And he was like there for me. You know, he could like actually take care of my heart too. And that space that allowed him to build trust with me to the point where he flew across the world to be with me without us having actually like hooked up or anything yet. Like we went from friends to, you know, we had a kiss and a cuddle before I left, but like we went from friends to, you know, kissing to living together and being together 24/7. 6 years later, you know, we're married, have a baby, you know, moving back across the world to the same area that we lived in when we first got together. So, like we have problems, like no doubt we have problems, but this is also kind of a storybook like ending. And this is all because this is two people who really shouldn't have had a storybook ending, but he'd also done a lot of work to like be the person that he wanted to be, even though he had all this pressure and this external pressure of this really toxic environment. He was kind of like removing himself and just like coping that way, but he was like being himself in his own time. And then I created space for him and he started to be himself in his own time with me, which would never have happened if I didn't build that clarity within myself by being really, really vulnerable. You know, my husband also, like, he doesn't run away. He doesn't ghost. He doesn't abandon me. You know, like I healed that thing, that sameness that I was attracting these people, you know, just abandoning me and ghosting me and not being there for me. So attachment theory says that you need a secure attachment in a partner. You need a partner with a secure attachment to heal an insecure attachment. And if you've never heard of attachment theory and you're tuning into this episode, I think like you definitely go and Google that stuff right now and find out what your, you know, obviously insecure attachment style is, because it'll be very illuminating. But I don't agree that you absolutely necessarily have to have someone with a secure attachment style to heal an insecure attachment. I think you have to foster that secure attachment within yourself first. And that secure attachment comes from like feeling how you feel, allowing yourself to feel the way that you feel, creating space for it, honoring it, and being truly, truly, brutally vulnerable with yourself. So I hope that was a little bit illuminating for y'all. I feel a little bit like weird about sharing all that, but I hope that helps a bit. And this episode was not planned at all. This was just a off the cuff one. I hope you enjoyed it. Next episode, we're going to get into talking about why who you're around matters and how it matters. So I will see you there. I can't wait. Good day, y'all. Until next time. Bye.